Alright. So, come around. Good girl. This afternoon, Serenity and I are going to read another couple of chapters on the Unicorn Princesses. And then yesterday we got a book called Misty of Chincoteague. This is a classic, really good kids book that we will get into. And it's going to be like Sunbeam Shine, where we're going to just do a couple chapters at a time, just for the sake of timeliness in the video. So we left off last time on chapter 7 of Sunbeam Shine. Again, this is Unicorn Princesses, Sunbeam Shine by Emily Bliss. And we are reading chapters 7 and 8 today with Serenity. Chapter 7. Cressida stood up and brushed sand off her coat, her jeans, and her boots. Just like glitter, the sand stuck to everything. Cressida tiptoed over Danny, trying not to tickle him with her feet, though he chuckled each time she pressed her boot into the ground. She climbed over a pile of rocks that looked like giant eggplants and stopped in front of a shivering purple cactus with its arms folded tightly across its chest. "Hello there," Cressida said, and she smiled her kindest, friendliest smile. The cactus blinked and frowned. Its teeth were chattering, and its lips had a bluish tinge. "I know you're really cold," Cressida said, "but would you be willing to talk to me just for a moment?" "It depends," the cactus snarled. "Did the dunes send you up here?" "No," Cressida said. "I've come on my own. My name is Cressida Jenkins. Princess Sunbeam brought me here to find the yellow sapphire." The cactus stared at Cressida for a long time and sighed. "I'm Corinne," she finally said. She unfolded one of her arms, smiled, and reached a prickly hand out toward Cressida. After a few seconds, Cressida realized the cactus wanted to shake her hand. Careful to avoid Corinne's needles, Cressida used her thumb and index finger to take the cactus's hand. With a name like Cressida, you could be a cactus," Corinne said. "All our names begin with C." "I'd love to be a cactus like you," Cressida said, trying to be polite. But truthfully, Cressida thought being a cactus sounded terrible. She would hate to be rooted to one place in the ground, even if it meant living with unicorn princesses in the rainbow realm. And here's a fun little picture of Cressida meeting her very first cacti. They're all getting along nicely. We like cacti. "I'm relieved you come to find Sunbeam's yellow sapphire," Corinne said. "We're all freezing cold, and we can't just put on a coat the way you can." "That sounds awful," Cressida said. "I'll find the sapphire as soon as I possibly can. And that's why I came to talk to you. Do you have any ideas about where I should look?" "The dunes are hiding the sapphire on purpose," Corinne sniffled. "Though you'll have to be the one to ask them where it is. The cacti aren't speaking to them." "Why aren't you speaking to them?" Cressida asked. She wanted to hear the other side of the story. "Well," Corinne said, crossing her prickly arms even more tightly, "they kept accusing us of hiding the yellow sapphire on purpose. When we told them for the 100th time that we don't have it, the dunes called us liars, and then they said our needles are dull and our flowers are ugly. That's when we quit talking to them." Cressida thought the fight between the dunes and the cacti sounded like the argument she had with her brother Cory. "I see," said Cressida. She wanted to be careful not to take sides. "Wait, did you say you have flowers?" Cressida asked, looking more carefully at the cacti. She didn't see a single flower. With one of her arms, Corinne pointed to several green lumps on her head and chest. "These are our flowers. We can only open them in the sun," Corinne explained. "As soon as the wizard lizard casts his spell, all our flowers shut." Cressida looked at the other 3 shivering cacti standing near Corinne. Sure enough, they were all covered in the same green lumps. "What color are your flowers?" Cressida asked. She imagined the cacti looked brilliant in the sunlight with their flowers open. "Mine are magenta," Corinne said proudly. "Mine are blue," another cactus said. "I'm Claude, and it's a pleasure to meet you." "Mine are pink," said another. "I'm Carl." "Mine are yellow," said one more, who Cressida noticed looked worried. "I'm Callie." "It's a pleasure to meet you, all of you, and I bet your flowers are beautiful," Cressida said. "I promise I will find Sunbeam's gemstone as soon as I can." "Thank you," the cacti said in unison. "Have any of you actually seen the yellow sapphire?" Cressida asked. "Of course not," Christine, Claude, and Carl replied in unison. Cressida noticed Callie said nothing. Instead, she cast her eyes downward and frowned nervously. Cressida thought Callie looked like she had a secret, and Cressida wondered if that secret was about the yellow sapphire. Cressida walked over to Callie and leaned in as close to Callie's ear as she could without getting prickled. "Callie," she whispered, "can I ask you a question?" Callie tightened her shivering arms. She looked so worried Cressida thought she might start crying. Cressida wanted to give her a hug, but that didn't seem like a good idea, given the long, sharp, purple needles that covered Callie's body. "I'm wondering if you know anything about where the yellow sapphire could be," Cressida whispered. "What are you two whispering about?" Corinne called out. Callie's eyes widened. "Nothing," Cressida called back. And then to Callie she whispered, "Any secrets you have are safe with me." "Do you promise not to tell Corinne, Claude, and Carl?" Callie whispered. "I promise not to tell anyone anything without your permission," Cressida answered. Callie took a deep breath and blinked back several tears. Well, on the day Ernest cast the spell, it was very strange here in the Glitter Canyon. There was thunder and lightning, the sky got dark, and then the sun vanished. Just then I felt something hard and heavy land in one of my flowers. At first, I thought it was one of the purple rocks that are all over the canyon, but just before my petals shut, I caught a glimpse of something yellow and glittery. I'm almost positive the sapphire is inside one of my closed flowers, but I can't open it without the sun." Callie took a deep breath. "I'm afraid to tell the other cacti because they're so sure the dunes have the yellow sapphire, and I'm afraid to tell the dunes because they're already so angry at us. I've been afraid to tell Sunbeam because she's the princess, and I don't want her to get mad at me." Cressida felt thrilled she had almost surely found the yellow sapphire, but concerned for Callie. "Thank you so much for trusting me," Cressida whispered. "Don't worry, we'll find a way to get the sapphire out of your flower, but I do think I'd better tell Sunbeam." "Do you think she'll be angry?" Callie asked. "I don't know for sure," Cressida said, "but I doubt it. And even if she is, I bet you two will be able to work it out." "Well," Callie said. She bit her lip and furrowed her brow. "Okay, you can tell Princess Sunbeam." "Thank you," Cressida said, and with that, she ran across the canyon as fast as she could, all the way back to Sunbeam. "Sunbeam!" she cried out, breathless. "Guess what?" Sunbeam dropped a long purple stick from her mouth and raised her head. Cressida glanced down at the sand by the unicorn's hooves and saw that Sunbeam had been drawing pictures of suns, rainbows, and girls riding unicorns. My eyes were so tired from looking at the purple sand that I was worried that even if the yellow sapphire was right in front of me, I wouldn't see it. "I decided to take a break," Sunbeam explained. "Did you find it?" "I know where it is," Cressida said, and she told Sunbeam about her conversation with Callie. "Good job." Sunbeam said. "I knew a girl who believes in unicorns could find it." The unicorn furrowed her brow. "Now we just have to figure out how we can get the yellow sapphire out of Callie's flower. Without the sun, she can't open it." Cressida had hoped Sunbeam would have an idea. Just then, a flame bite scampered in front of Sunbeam and Cressida. Sorry, horsehair. Hazard of the job. For a moment, it stood still, and Cressida squinted and shielded her eyes from the flame bite's bright light. After only a few seconds, she felt as though she had stepped into a hot oven, and she unzipped her yellow coat. Suddenly, the flame bite squealed and scurried in circles around Sunbeam, flailing its arms and legs as it ruined her drawings. "Shoo!" Sunbeam said, stamping her hoof. The flame bite shrieked one last time and dashed behind a violet-colored pine tree. Immediately, the cold returned. "Rats!" Sunbeam said. "That silly flame bite ruined the best picture I've ever drawn of a human girl. Before I met you, I always thought humans had tails." Cressida laughed, and then, as she zipped back up her coat, she had an idea. "Sunbeam," she said slowly, "how high can flame bites jump?" "They can't jump at all," Sunbeam said. "They just run around and shriek." "And you said they like roinkelberry seeds?" Cressida asked. "They love roinkelberry seeds. They'd do almost anything to get them." Cressida pulled the roinkelberry from her pocket, split it in half, picked a teal seed from the center, and threw it as far away from them as she could. "Good throw," Sunbeam said, admiring how far the seed had sailed. For a few seconds, the seed lay in the sand. Then a flame bite scurried from a pile of rocks and popped the seed into its mouth. As soon as it finished chewing, it screeched and ran in circles, searching for more. "Watch out," Sunbeam said. "If it thinks you'll feed it, it will follow us everywhere." Fortunately, the flame bite didn't realize Cressida had thrown the seed, and it darted back behind the rocks. "I've got a plan," Cressida exclaimed, jumping up and down, "but we'll have to get the cacti and the dunes to work together." Sunbeam swished her tail and frowned. "I doubt that will work," she said. "They've had arguments before, but I've never seen them this angry. Young lady, if you knock me over off this seat, I'm going to be very upset with you." "Yes, very upset. Be nice. Be nice. Nice." Back up if you're going to be rude. "I know they're angry," Cressida said thoughtfully, "but I think it's possible they can be friends again. Every time my friends and I have gotten into an argument, we've found a way to talk about it and make up. If they didn't still care about each other, they wouldn't feel so angry and hurt." Sunbeam raised one yellow eyebrow and shrugged. "I guess we can try," she said. "What should we do first?" Cressida said. "The first step is to go talk to Callie." "Climb on," Sunbeam kneeled, and Cressida quickly climbed onto the unicorn's back. Chapter 8. Sunbeam galloped across the glitter canyon, her gold hooves kicking up a cloud of purple dust behind them. As the cold wind rifled through Cressida's hair, she closed her eyes and smiled. There was nothing in the world better than riding a unicorn, she decided. Sunbeam stopped on the other side of the canyon, right in front of Corinne, Claude, Carl, and Callie. Callie glanced at Cressida with a look of panic. Cressida smiled reassuringly at the nervous cactus, slid off Sunbeam's back, walked over to Callie, and leaned as close to Callie's ear as she could. "I have an idea for how to get your flower to open," Cressida whispered, "but we'll need the dunes to help us. Could I have your permission to tell the other cacti and the dunes what happened?" Callie took a deep breath and said with a wavering voice, "If we need to tell everyone, I'd like to do it myself." "That's very brave," Cressida replied. Callie took another deep breath. She looked at Corinne, Claude, and Carl, and then she looked down at the 6 purple sand dunes: Danny, Denise, Daryl, Doris, Dave, and Devin. "I have something important to say," she announced. The other cacti, who were whispering among themselves, stopped their conversations and looked up, but the dunes frowned, closed their eyes, and began to slide away. Then Danny yelled, "We're not talking to the cacti until they admit they're holding a yellow sapphire on purpose." "We don't have it, you do," Claude snarled back. "You're just jealous that we have flowers and you don't." And here we have our shouting match between the dunes and the cacti. You're hiding it on purpose so we can't open our flowers. That's ridiculous, Daryl snorted. You're just jealous that we can slide around and you're rooted to the ground. Soon all the cacti and all of the dunes were screaming. Cressida covered her ears. Sunbeam whinnied and reared up, trying to get everyone to be quiet, but the cacti and the dunes only yelled louder. Cressida bent down, plucked a blade of purple grass, put it between her thumbs, and blew as hard as she could. The grass made a high whistling noise. Finally, all the cacti and all the dunes fell silent. As ruler of the Glitter Canyon, I command you to listen while Callie speaks, Sunbeam said. The dunes closed their sandy purple mouths. The cacti shut their bluish-purple prickly lips. Sunbeam looked at Callie. Go ahead, she said. Well, Callie said, I think the yellow sapphire is stuck in one of my flowers. Doris muttered, I knew it. Callie continued, I promise I haven't been holding it there on purpose. It landed there when the wizard lizard cast his spell, and then my flower closed and I couldn't open it. I was afraid to say anything because I didn't want to make the fight between the dunes and the cacti worse. I'm sorry for not telling you sooner. I didn't know what to do. The dunes grumbled among themselves, but Cressida could tell they felt less angry. They could hear in Callie's voice that she was telling the truth. She wasn't hiding the yellow sapphire on purpose, and she wanted to get it out of her flower and back on Sunbeam's necklace as quickly as possible. Finally, Danny said, We're sorry we said all of those mean things to you. We just felt frustrated. And cold, said Daryl. I'm always mean and cranky when I'm cold. Corinne laughed. Me too, she said. Yes, me too, Claude and Carl added. There was a long silence and Cressida held her breath. Danny cleared his throat. Friends again? He asked. Yes, friends again, Corinne said. When all the dunes and all the cacti smiled and cheered, Cressida exhaled. She felt a warm, full feeling in her heart. I feel much better now, Callie said. Then she looked at Cressida. But I'm still really cold. Didn't you say you have a plan to get my flower to open? I sure do, Cressida said. For my plan to work, we all have to work together. Are you ready? They all nodded. Great, Cressida said. First, I need all the dunes to get in a circle around Callie and to lie as flat as possible. The dunes looked puzzled, but they slid over to Callie and arranged themselves in a tight circle. They flattened and closed their eyes and mouths. Perfect, Cressida said. When I yell up, I need you to get as tall as possible. So tall that you're like a wall around Callie. And I need you to stay like that until I yell, got it. Can you do that? Yes, Danny, Denise, Daryl, Doris, Dave, and Devin all said in unison. Fantastic, Cressida said. Then she looked at Sunbeam. Would you mind standing right here? Cressida pointed to the sand behind Danny. If it's okay with you, I'll need to sit on your back. Sure, Sunbeam said, looking confused as she walked over to Danny. Cressida winked at Sunbeam and smiled reassuringly at Callie, and then she pulled the wrinkleberry from her pocket and picked out a handful of seeds. Yeah, you can't go anywhere. You've got to be part of the story. She placed a seed on Danny's forehead and another one a few inches away on his nose. She kept putting down wrinkleberry seeds until she had made a trail leading across Danny and right up to Callie. Then, in front of Callie's closed flower, she left a pile of seeds. Cressida ran over to Sunbeam, climbed onto her back, and whispered, Now we just have to wait. Soon enough, a flame bite, running and shrieking, found the first seed Cressida had placed on the ground. It crouched down, popped the seed into its mouth, and then moved on to the next seed, and then the next, moving closer and closer to Callie. When it found the pile of seeds right in front of Callie, it began cramming them into its mouth. Up, Cressida said. The dunes rose up as high as they could, surrounding Callie in the flame bite with a high sandy wall. In the flame bite's heat and light, Cressida noticed Callie's flower had started to open just a little bit. Her plan was working. When the flame bite gobbled up the last of the seeds, it began to shriek and run in circles trying to get away, but the dunes were too steep and it was trapped right in front of Callie. Cressida watched as Callie's flower kept slowly opening. She wants to go away. She's bored. The dunes panted and grunted. How much longer? Dave and Devin groaned. Cressida looked at Callie's flower. It was halfway open. You're doing an amazing job, she yelled. Just a little longer. You can do it. The flame bite screeched even more frantically. Cressida pushed her hand into her pocket and, to her relief, she found several more seeds that had fallen out of the wrinkleberry. She tossed them right in front of Callie, and the flame bite stuffed them greedily into its mouth. Callie's flower opened a little more, and then a little more. Now Cressida could see the yellow sapphire. If I climb up on your neck, could you please get me as close to Callie's flower as possible? Cressida asked Sunbeam. Of course, Sunbeam said, and she craned her neck toward Callie. Meanwhile, Danny cried, I don't think I can stay like this much longer. You can do it! We're almost there! Cressida exclaimed. She slid onto Sunbeam's neck and leaned forward. Then she reached her left arm toward the yellow sapphire, but when she tried to grab it, her fingers barely brushed the gemstone. She wasn't quite close enough. Hold on tight, Sunbeam whispered. Then, with a whinny, Sunbeam reared up onto her hind legs and thrust her front legs and head toward Callie's flower. Whoa! Cressida yelled as she reached again for the yellow sapphire. This is Cressida reaching for her sapphire while the naughty little unicorn rears up, which, by the way, kids, is not a fun thing, no matter what Cressida says. This time, she closed her hand around the cold, hard gemstone and yelled out, Got it! Phew! All 6 dunes yelled as they flattened to the ground, breathing hard and groaning. The flame bite, shrieking and flailing, raced away. That was the hardest work I've ever done, Daryl panted. You're telling me, Denise said, trying to catch her breath. Cressida scooted down Sunbeam's neck and onto her back before she slid to the ground. The yellow sapphire felt smooth and heavy in Cressida's hand, and she opened her fingers to see it up close. It shimmered in her palm. This is the yellow sapphire in her hand. Good job, everyone, Cressida said. That was really hard, and you did it. Then she looked over at Sunbeam. Are you ready to get your sapphire back? Sunbeam smiled with excitement and nodded. She bent her neck toward Cressida, and Cressida carefully placed the yellow sapphire in the empty circle in Sunbeam's blue necklace. Suddenly, Sunbeam's horn began to shimmer, and a brilliant ray of light came out from the tip. Sunbeam whinnied with joy. The sun, bright and yellow, appeared in the sky. Soon it was so warm that Cressida peeled off her yellow jacket and rolled up her sleeves. She fanned herself as she beheld the beauty of the Glitter Canyon. The sand glittered, the cacti, their prickles shining and their flowers opening, unfolded their arms and raised them toward the sky. The shimmering dunes slid and danced. A brilliant blue sky replaced the dim gray one. Thank you, Cressida, Sunbeam said. You've done an amazing job. You worked hard, and that hard work has paid off. I was happy to help, Cressida said, and she meant it. Let's go back to the palace, Sunbeam said. I can't wait to tell my sisters what you did. She kneeled down, and Cressida climbed onto her back. We only have one chapter left, and it is a fairly short chapter, so I'm going to go ahead and finish, even though it's becoming a very long video, so I apologize. So, chapter 9. Back at the palace, the unicorn princesses crowded around Cressida. Wow, Flash said, after Sunbeam told her sisters how Cressida had recovered the yellow sapphire from Callie's flower. I had no idea human girls were so creative and smart. Cressida smiled proudly. Amazing, said Bloom. Incredible, Prism added. nodding so the amethyst on her necklace glittered. Breeze, Moon, and Firefly flicked their manes and tails in agreement, and Cressida admired how beautiful all their gemstones looked in the brightly lit palace. Then Flash looked at Sunbeam and whispered, so loud Cressida could hear her, "Do you want to give it to her, or do you want me to?" "I'll do it," Sunbeam whispered. Flash nodded, though she looked disappointed. Sunbeam turned and trotted down a long hallway with marble floors and chandeliers. Soon she reappeared with a pink velvet pouch in her mouth. "We, the Unicorn Princesses, have a special gift just for you," Flash said. The other unicorns fell silent and smiled. That's the offering. Sunbeam walked right up to Cressida and dropped the pink pouch into her hands. Cressida's heart fluttered with excitement. She immediately recognized the shape of the gift inside the couch. Grinning, she pulled out the key with the glowing crystal handle. "It's your very own key to the Rainbow Realm," Sunbeam exclaimed. "We'd very much like you to have it," said Flash, Bloom, Prism, and all the other unicorns nodded. "You're welcome to visit any time you want," Sunbeam said. "And when we want to signal you to return, we'll make the handle turn bright pink. Do you remember where the key goes in the oak tree?" "Yes, I remember," said Cressida, wondering how she could ever forget that. "Thank you." It was the best present she could imagine. She already couldn't wait for her next visit to the Rainbow Realm. Just then, her stomach rumbled, and she realized she was hungry for more than just wrinkleberries. And even though she didn't think she would tell her parents or Corey about her adventure, she knew they wouldn't believe her. She missed them. As if Sunbeam could read her mind, the unicorn said, "I bet you're ready to go home." Cressida nodded. "I've had such an amazing time here," she said, "but I should get back to my family. They'll be expecting me for breakfast." Anytime you're ready to leave the Rainbow Realm, all you need to do is close your eyes, put both hands on the handle of the key, and say, "Take me home," Flash explained. "Why don't you try it now, and we'll see you again soon." Cressida nodded. She waved goodbye to Flash, Bloom, Prism, Breeze, Moon, and Firefly. As she hugged Sunbeam, she said, "I'm so glad I could help you." She put both hands on the key's handle and closed her eyes. "Take me home," she said, and then she added, "Please?" Right away, Cressida felt a spinning sensation. She opened her eyes. For an instant, she saw a blur of purple, silver, and white before everything went pitch black. This time, instead of a falling sensation, Cressida felt as though she were soaring upward. And then the flying sensation stopped and the spinning slowed until she could see she was in the woods outside her house, lying on the ground next to the giant oak tree. For a moment, Cressida stared at the morning sky with the puffy white branches. Finally, she sat up. She looked down at her key with its blue crystal handle and slid it into her pocket. As she stood up, she noticed her yellow boots were gone, and she was yet again wearing her silver unicorn sneakers with the pink lights. Cressida took a deep breath. She smiled, and then she ran home for breakfast with her parents and Corey, her unicorn sneakers blinking all the way. And that is the end of Unicorn Princess's Sunbeam's Shine.